Hi there, my name is Leslie Thompson, and today I'm going to teach you how to make the very best buttermilk biscuit in the world. I come from a long line of Southern stubborn women, 4 generations in fact, who all thought that they made the very best biscuit. But I'm here to tell you the best recipe goes to me. But before we begin, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the history of the biscuit. The American biscuit has been around since before the Civil War. There's a lot of great reasons why. Number 1, it was cheap. Number 2, it didn't require any yeast, so it was one of those things that people can make on the go and be done with it. And then finally, it was great for both the farmer and the frontiersman. Everyone liked biscuits, and they lasted for days, sometimes weeks, so it was great. In the American Southern diet, we traditionally eat our biscuits with gravy, but personally, I like mine drizzled with a little bit of honey or strawberry jam. So now that I have your taste buds tinted, let's get started. Before I begin cooking anything, I always like to make sure that I have my hands washed, my hair pinned back, and I always like to wear an apron too. Just good hygiene. So let's look at our ingredients. We have 2½ cups of self-rising flour, plus a little bit for dusting. We have a tablespoon of sugar, a tablespoon of sea salt, a cup of buttermilk, a ½ cup of shortening, and a couple tablespoons of melted butter. So let's get started. This bowl I've had in my entire life. It's actually probably older than me, so it means a lot. One good tip to remember is when you're mixing, only mix till moist. Don't overdo it. That also is good for when you're kneading. Just knead till you need to and stop. So we're going to take our flour, again 2½ cups, and just dump it in. Our tablespoon of sugar, our tablespoon of sea salt. I like to use spatulas, so I'm just going to mix it all together really quick. And done. So the next thing we're going to do is take our shortening and cut it in. You can either use a fork or a pastry blender like this. You're just going to use your pastry blender and basically mix it in, just so it's pretty even all the way through and nice and crumbly. Next, you're going to take your buttermilk and just pour it in. I've noticed here in Colorado, we always need a little bit of extra buttermilk. But if you're in other regions where it's a little bit more humid, you don't need as much. You can always get away with doing a 3/4 of a cup. If you're not a big fan of buttermilk, you can also use just plain milk, but I like how the buttermilk tastes. Plus, it reminds me of my grandfather. And done. So I'm just going to set that aside, and I'm going to take my extra flour for dusting, and I'm going to sprinkle it across. Another helpful tip is to not only dust your surface, but also make sure your hands are dusted with flour and whatever you're going to be using to cut your biscuits with. You can use a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter, but I actually like to use a cup. It's easy and it's always handy. So I'm going to take a little bit of flour and just rub around the edge, and then take a little bit from my hands, rub them together. I like to take my dough and divide it in half. So I'm just going to take a little bit and scoop it out. Now, as I reminded you earlier, you don't want to knead too much. Just a little bit. 3 or 4 times max. So you're just going to take it all together, press it down together like that, and you're done. Take your cutter, push down and twist, and it makes the perfect little biscuit. I like to put my biscuits so they touch the little edges, and that way it makes it really soft all the way around. You should have enough dough to make about 10 to 12 biscuits. So when you're ready, all you have to do is just take your pan or your stone, like I'm using, ungreased, and pop it in the oven for about 13 to 14 minutes. One last thing I'd like to remind you, in high altitude, things don't brown as easily as they do in the south, so just keep an eye on it. You don't want them to get too tough. So I hope you enjoy your biscuits. I hope you learn how easy it is to make really good biscuits at home. Bon appetit, or like my granny always said, hurry up and get your biscuits before somebody else gets one. Thanks.